seasoned people like you. And I would like to take this opportunity to present Professor Bodapatti Chandrasekhar sir. He's a seasoned language teacher and communication skills writer. He is also a writer for excellence both in Telugu as well as in English. He writes poems and he's a columnist in the local daily of this Varta, Eenadu, and again in local newspapers in Vijayawada. So such is the power of this presenter of this day. And he is also a communication skills expert, retired professor from Vijayawada, and again he is a freelancer, and he does so many things. And again he is he's an awesome presenter. Sir has been consistently and constantly doing the presentation in our Velta forum, and that shows that is a proof for his ever learning spirit as well as this quest for knowledge and sharing the knowledge with people. And it's an amazing thing to welcome you, sir, and I take presenting you to this. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir. The floor is yours. And you can.
Good morning, Mr. Saravanan and the rest of the teaching fraternity. I always tell you, I'm very enthusiastic about learning. I told you already. Because it's the learning, that idea of learning, the passion for learning makes us more, I don't say mature, more humble, perhaps, more humble. Because the man in the water knows the real depth of it, to how much depth he has gone, and how much still yet to be explored or gone inside. That's why it's the man who is in the water, who has such a certain depth, should be humble, just because he knows the depth he has to travel. That's why Lord Tennyson says he compares knowledge to an arc. The nearer you go, the farther it goes in. Knowledge is always expanding. It's a perennial river. You have to be off to that sun. Whatever you can perhaps catch with your passion will catch that sun. But let us not be satisfied with what we have learned. Let's explore what is yet to be explored, and let us explore what is unexplored and what is explored. Let us say, unexplored what is already explored. That should be the spirit of it. Well, today's topic I have chosen to talk about is George Bernard Shaw. He is known as G.B. Shaw. Hereafter, I am going to use this word G.B. Shaw or Shaw for convenience sake. Pygmalion. It was prescribed for us when we were doing MA English. I fell into love with it, with the way the story runs, with the way Shaw perhaps handled the theme and all that. Though I was not perhaps much aware of the nuances of that particular play while I was doing MA, I understood that it was a wonderful play. And as Pygmalion, the sculptor fell in love with the beautiful woman he chiseled. I also fell in love with Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion, the drama. But before I go into the details of Pygmalion and describe the themes, different themes it has taken up, I would like to say about G.B. Shaw. As I told you, Shaw, sometimes about him. Because unless and until we know about George Bernard Shaw, his ideas, concepts, his strong beliefs and convictions about religion, about society, about language, perhaps the Pygmalion play cannot be best understood best visualize it, perhaps. That's what I feel. G.B. Shah was born on 26 July 1856, known to the literary world as G.B. Shah and outside of it as G.B. Shah. He was an Irish playwright. He was not English as most, of course. Irish Ireland is a part of England, UK. He was born an Irishman, and Irish people used to take a great pride in their language and their culture. Of course, every nation, but Irish people are more. He was a critic, polemicist, and regarding the one of the is regarded as one of the greatest intellectuals. He exerted his influence, or he left his indelible influence on English literature. That is very profound and abiding. Still, it has its origin. Still, I think that G.B. Shaw's views and his indelible marks on English literature and on English language are still relevant today. He was famous for his witty or quick repartees, perhaps. Because Shaw's thoughtful opinions on religion, literature, culture, stagecraft, and especially on English language, English language and its erratic spelling, erratic pronunciation are very amazing to look at it. He's a leading dramatist as he was, at 60 plays of which Man and Superman, Miss Barbara, The Doctor's Dilemma, and Season Cleopatra, and the drama I have taken up now, Pygmalion, are very famous. And Saint John, to mention, I forgot Saint John. No wonder he won the Nobel Prize. And who could win perhaps a Nobel Prize other than such genius as G.B. Shah? He won Nobel Prize for his literature, Pygmalion, in 1925. Though he took his first breath in Dublin, Ireland, he chose London to blossom his talent, to flourish his talent. Otherwise, mostly he was self-taught. He struggled hard to carve a niche for himself as a dramatist first. His struggle and rigorous self-training paid him very richly. He went to school till his middle class, something like that. And after that, he worked as a clerk and different stints he did. And then he had to move along with his mother to London. So London had become his launch pad for his knowledge, for his genius, and to flourish into. By the end of 1880s, he had become a respected and genius dramatist of all times. And he has become the member of Fabian Society, and began his career as a pamphleteer first. He was not a dramatist in the beginning. He started writing pamphlets, which won him a quick success. Emboldened by this, he went on writing plays also. He listened to American economist Henry George's speech and being inspired with him and was drawn to socialism. Those most of his plays do reflect socialist views, and he written some plays for Fabian Society also. And one more dramatist, a Norwegian dramatist and playwright and theater director and founder of modernism and realism, Henry Gibson left a very great impact on, especially Henry, especially on G.B. Shaw. In what way? What way? Especially to introduce the modernism, to introduce realism. All the dramas, perhaps by then, which were played almost all over the world, especially in the European countries, did have a dramatic overaction. Shaw decided to uh, free free English drama from this artificiality, what he could say, perhaps we could say. He wants to infuse realism, the actual life, the actual characters, perhaps, into English literature, and is inspired by William Morris and then John Ruskin also. Shaw, Shaw tried to show realism into English drama, which was not, I'm sorry, which was made it literature. But G.B. Shaw was, literature was G.B. Shaw was not for aesthetic pleasure, though it was William Morris and John Ruskin who molded his aesthetic sense, aesthetic perhaps inspiration in him. For him, literature was not for aesthetic pleasure, aesthetic joy. Then what for it could be? For him, it was to advance his, to project his, perhaps, his political, social, religious ideas. And so many people have taken the genres of literature as the vehicle or instrument to propagate what they did, to propagate their beliefs, convictions, and political views, and so on and so on. And as all of you, as you know very well, Tamil Nadu Karunanidhi, he was basically a wonderful poet. And later he used his that poetic talent, poetic genius to make the speeches or to inspire the people with his speeches and all that. Such was the power of and energy of the pen. So G.B. Shaw wanted to use literature to project his views, political, social, religious, and all that. He was very practical, down to the earth, and perhaps he brought the drama that was soaring very high, soaring in the celestial plane to the ground. Shah's views on society, religion, and politics, and literature, and English language especially, were a sharp departure from the world's. He was considered by many as a maverick in the sense, M-A-V-E-R-I-C, maverick. A man who takes a sharp departure from the known beliefs and all that. Little wonder, his views, opinions became a controversial. He himself has become a very controversial person. The literary world and the world, literary world also divided into two. One supporting one side of one face of G.B. Shaw and the other face of G.B. Shaw. These ideas, conceptions, and his opinions on religion, society, and the way of men and women made him very unpopular. And the ideas expressed during the World War also made him, because he has his own ideas. That were his own ideas. Right. But the other side of his other side of his was his genius and crystal clear ideas, perceptions, thought-provoking views were well received, and none can perhaps deny his talent. It is this side of his personality, this phase of his personality, that won him respect and popularity. And the popularity and the respect he won from that point of onwards was with him till the end of his life, till the end of his 94th year, the year in which he died, perhaps 94 years of age, perhaps. It was this angle, perhaps angle of Bernard Shaw, that's the steady ascending graph of success, his success. In 1938, he furnished the screenplay for the My Fair Lady, a movie, which was an adoption of his play Pygmalion. Pygmalion was basically, in those days, or even now, perhaps I think that plays are meant for stage only, plays are written for stage only. And much later, being attracted or fascinated by the theme and the characterization of that particular drama or play, perhaps any producer would come want to adopt that into a movie. Pygmalion was great success, grand success, both on the stage and both on the screen. And for writing screenplay, brilliant screenplay. Oh, My Fair Lady, the movie. He won an Academy Award. And he was a prolific writer. He wrote almost 60, nearing 60 plays. And he wrote some 2 or 3 novels which were not famous actually. And he's good at prose also. Has written purely prose. His views on spoken English and broken English, on many one. Being an intellectual, perhaps, being a genius, he could touch upon perhaps any subject. And whatever subject he has touched upon, he can enhance its beauty. He can perhaps give an insightful and thought-provoking depth of it. That's why the entire world, and perhaps this world, reverse such people, such geniuses. And he was, I told you, as a maverick, very, very strict in his attire, in his food, in his way of talking, and everything. And at the age of 94, he breathed his last. He went into long silence. And even at the time, he refused all the state honors. And even the Order of Merit also in 1946. Such a man of conviction he was. He is at his end as he was just in the beginning. That means, what I would like to say is that his strong convictions and all that, they were never shaken. He and his works especially are a class apart in the entire English literature. And next to Shakespeare, of course, Bernard Shaw, for your information, most of you must have read it. He did not approve of Shakespeare's plays. Somehow, he has his own views. It doesn't perhaps deter or discourage us to go for Shakespeare. That was his genius. Perhaps have not appreciated Shakespeare's style of writing and the themes he has taken, and perhaps the message that his dramas failed to give. All this perhaps made him less of a criminal. So next to Shakespeare, the natural and the genius dramatist infused life into it. Okay. Next to Shakespeare, the natural and genius dramatist William Shakespeare, George Bernard Shaw is mostly read even now. Let's peep into his life a bit. All this perhaps makes the way for our understanding of Pygmalion. George Goss Shaw and Lucinda Elizabeth were Shaw's parents. His father was a drunkard and did not go into a good job and retired. He took a small pension and was out of it. And perhaps a defeat in the life that he could not succeed in terms of luxury, in terms of money and all that. He took to drinking. So drinking was his regular habit. This drunken nature of his father and the irresponsibility of not leading the family led his wife, that is Shaw's mother, to equip herself to run the family. As she is gifted with a wonderful singing voice, and make it a point, this wonderful singing voice, and wonderful singing voice, she took 2 music lessons. And Shaw used to tell, my entire house is filled with music, and people from singing side, from instrumental side and vocal instrumental used to come to house and compose many songs and all that. So his entire house perhaps vibrated with music. All this has gone to his into his heart and then very pleasant to his ears also. So Shaw's mother, who had a singing voice, singing talent, decided to lead the family. She took 2 music lessons, as I told you earlier. She had to become the breadwinner of the family. About his parents, Shaw once remarked that he learned the music sense, a love for music from his mother, and from his father he learned the sense of humor. This is also to be noted. The sense of humor is perhaps breathed into the character of Doolittle, Elijah's father in the Pygmalion. And for perhaps that character, keeping his father's character in view, molded him. That's why Shaw had a soft corner for his character, that drunken man, drunkard. It was from his father he learned the sense of humor, and it was from his mother he fell in love with music. This love for music influenced his pronunciation, and this helped him to fight with the British. Decided to fight with the Britishers also, but the lack of respect for the language also. And this music sense has generated into his literary style of writing and giving a very assonant sound, a sweet sound to his speech as well as to the writings also. Much before his colossal literary journey, he began his career as a music critic. Here I told you already earlier, his mother was endowed with a singing voice, a wonderful musical voice. The music sense he has imbibed perhaps inherited from his mother, helped him to establish himself or to start his life as a music critic. It was William Morris, as I told you, John Ruskin's views that molded his aesthetic sense. So this aesthetic sense, as well as that music sense that he inherited from his mother, stood him in good stead to become to become popular with uh, his reviews for the music appear also. One minute. Shaw's knowledge was not from schools, and because he was not into big institutions, and he did not have a continuous education because of their poverty and because of the unsteady income of his father, his drunken nature, and all these. So he determined to chisel himself. He determined to chisel himself and his life into to be a worthy personality. And he had a bitter experience. We would say perhaps it's a bitter words about his father and mother. Is the responsibility, incapability of running the family, and his mother's devotion to music more than the children made Xxiii think independently. It's a blessing in disguise, we say sometimes. How the genius could turn the adverse into wonderful fortunes. The irresponsibility and the incapability of his father to run the family, and his mother's devotion. Of course, those she took to the lessons of music to feed her family. Her concern for music was more than what she could show, what she could have shown perhaps on the children. This made Xxiii think and grow independently, independent of his father, independent of his mother, independent of anything, any conviction, any belief, perhaps that he could find in the society around the people. His gaining music sense from his mother helped him initially begin his career, I told you, music critic, and later as a critic of plays also. Meanwhile, as I told you, Shaw rigorously self-trained himself. He trained himself most of the time. He started reading books, and he started, especially, he found pleasure of reading dramas or plays, and went on writing reviews for the dramas. And his reviews, both for music concerts and for dramas, won a great applause. And he started establishing himself as a good critic. Being gifted with beautiful voice, and being gifted with beautiful voice, and Bernard Shaw is endowed with a beautiful voice, and so endowed with, he's gifted with a beautiful voice, and in his beautiful gifted voice, and English language sounded very beautifully, perhaps more beautifully than in those of perhaps the English. His pronunciation is very wonderful and amazing, and it became a pride. It became a pride for him, and it is a pride for him, and should I say, and envy for the English to copy to model upon this sentence on Vonidana. Owner's pride and neighbor's envy. It became a pride to Benoit, and for the English, it became envy, jealousy, jealousy. Well, this music sense and his musical voice enabled him to speak exactly, to sound perhaps, and to utter, would I say, each and every sound of English very excellently, very excellently than the English. Most of you know that he is from Ireland. He didn't mince words to keeping this strength as his background. As background, he didn't mince words to scold or abuse the English for their limited alphabet. What happens in since because of limited alphabet, it would lead to a difficult in pronunciation. 26 letters are there, but they could produce 44 sounds. How could they be? That's why he requested them, he goaded them, he tried to convince them, he tried to abuse them, tried to scold them openly. That the English has no respect for their English language, and they have great genius and great people like Milton and Shakespeare. Yet they do not have love for the language. And he was not satisfied with that alone. He went to the should I say, to part a portion of his will, property in his will. If the English, if English were to perhaps change their alphabet or increase their alphabet in future, they could use this fund. But naturally and wonderfully, that fund remains intact, untouched. Of course, it has accrued a lot of interest also. And let's hope that the English, even now, for that money's sake, could do that. I don't know. Can we expect the English now and to increase their willingness, perhaps their readiness to increase their alphabet, so as not to cause inconvenience and difficulty to the readers? As English language has limited vocabulary, it limits its pronunciation. So, apart from the alphabet, the English learner has to learn the 44 sounds, which we call them phonetic language, phonetic script we call it. Unless you have that phonetic knowledge, you cannot pronounce the words properly. To avoid all this, he pleaded them. But no, if such a thing happens, if such a thing were to happen, that is reformation of English and perhaps the enhancement of the alphabet, English would be simple. It would be accessible to all. Perhaps it becomes that this unphonetic language, this unphonetic English language becomes phonetic. When it becomes phonetic, it will be quite easy for us to pronounce it. There will be no pronunciation, spelling difficulties, assaults would be there. Most of the Indian languages do have larger alphabet. This larger alphabet, what happens? Each letter is confined to one sound only. If a letter confined to one sound, we call it phonetical. But take the, in the case of English alphabet, and it is very erratic. This erratic nature of English pronunciation and all that, and way of things has gone in pronunciation also. That's fine. Do the English want to do the? I don't know. These are my views. Do the English want to preserve their peculiarity and oddity of their language regarding alphabet, or do they want to preserve as their treasure trove or cultural treasure? I don't know. These are the different things I could say about Bernard Shaw. And much before Pygmalion, I go into Pygmalion. I could say that it's a play in 5 acts. I'm not going to give the summaries of each act, as we know already, as any perhaps browsing in the Google search will give you that. I would like to reflect upon certain concepts of this play. First, let me go for the title. The title Pygmalion. Pygmalion is a Greek philosopher. In Ovid's Metamorphosis, a long poem. It's a long poem. Metamorphosis was written by Ovid. In that, there was a Greek philosopher. His name was Pygmalion. He's a mythological figure. While carving a beautiful woman, he put his heart and soul in it. After the entire carving was done, she was so beautiful, and he praised the god of Aphrodite. I think, if I remember correctly, that's the name, Greek god. And he requested that Pygmalion would request him to breathe life into that particular statue, which is stone. The god did so. The result was a beautiful woman stood before him. While carving the ivory into a beautiful woman, perhaps bewitching woman. I don't know. I can say very fascinating woman. Let us say very beautiful and fascinating woman. This sculptor Pygmalion fell in love with it, the love from which he could not be out of it. So he prayed to God, and God appeared, and God gave his wish to be fulfilled. As a result, this beautiful ivory statue turned into the woman with life and blood, flesh and blood. And Pygmalion naturally marries that particular the girl, that woman. That goes the story. And this Greek story inspired G.B. Shaw. But as I told you earlier, he's quite against all the established concepts, convictions, and things. And you could perhaps visualize what his only genius people could show. I'm not speaking about G.B. Shaw exclusively here, G.B. Shaw only, but in general, any genius you could see much ahead of his times, whom we call as visionaries. The visionaries actually, they could see. That's why they were not properly understood. Their sayings were misinterpreted, and all that. It was Oscar Wilde, if I remember rightly, who agreed that what you call it, a woman and a man, without going to the institution of marriage, would lead a life, and what you call it nowadays, Shajivan, something like that. But that he did an offense. The court tried to show him, so he went into. He could not see in the public for over a long time. He went into exile. But what happened now? What they visualized, how much vision they had of the time. So G.B. Shaw wanted to give a new dimension to this Pygmalion. Always he wanted to perhaps tell through his dramas, his literature, his ideas, beliefs, and concepts. That's why here also, there in the Pygmalion, you could see a Pygmalion, the sculptor, putting his heart and soul and carve, trying to carve an ivory into a beautiful woman. It's true. The same job is done in this Pygmalion play by Professor Higgins. Then Professor Higgins is the incarnation of perhaps a reflection of Pygmalion, the great sculptor, and he did so. But unlike Pygmalion, the Greek sculptor, this Professor Higgins has designed, as G.B. Shaw wanted him to be molded, and did not fall into love with that girl. There, the beautiful woman, ivory beautiful woman. Now here, Eliza Doolittle. He did not fall in love with her. He never had the intention of marrying her also. His job is to make that flower girl who speaks very cacophonous sounds. Her speech was very cacophonous because she speaks very dialectical language. He wanted to transform her. There he wants to show perhaps his extrinsic talents and genius that he could transform a ordinary flower girl who was selling the flowers in the bazaars, in the markets, to transform her and make her pass into the royal party. Of course, it would take 6 months' time, in which it transformed. It trained her very rigorously, and it does that. But unlike I told you, unlike Pygmalion, the sculptor, he never intended to marry. That was his job. And here we have to see Professor Higgins as a genius who has passion for English phonetics. The science of English phonetics is nothing but the science of speech, and his abilities he wants to prove. In a way, he wants to take Eliza Doolittle for his experiment's sake. The idea in making this flower girl pass as the well-bred, he wants to get his perhaps appetite, that is appetite for pride and appetite of pride perhaps. He wants to show his talent at Zala. That's how he molds. And that was the story behind this Sir Pygmalion. It was a sharp departure, as I told you. Shaw stands as a sharp contrast to the convictions and all that. He wants to give a different treatment, different vision, different view perhaps. Perhaps intellect goes a long way to establish that. And surprisingly, when this Pygmalion drama was adopted to my movie as Fair Lady, and Professor Higgins' role was done by Rex Harrison and Audrey Hepburn, Eliza Doolittle, and some more. Against Shaw's ending of the play, there the movie, Professor Higgins marries Eliza Doolittle. Of course, that's the story. That's what happens in every novel. every literary piece perhaps that is adopted for movie, what happens? The producers and the director perhaps would want to change according to the taste of the people and all that. Okay, we don't go into details whether it is genuine or not. It's not the debate platform, I suppose. Right. What is the story of this story? Story this Pygmalion. Very simple. I told you early the beginning, perhaps. The Pygmalion drama consists of 5 acts, whose summary I'm not going to tell you. I would like to tell in brief the story in a nutshell, perhaps. A flower girl is found in the beginning of the play, selling the flowers at a night, perhaps at night time. Say it's about 8 something 9 like that. And all the people who were waiting for the buses, waiting for the vehicles to go on, were at the shelter. All of a sudden, there was suddenly there was a rain. It started downpouring, and people couldn't get the vehicles. And this flower girl enters there. Lisa, I told it. And she speaks in her own dialect. As we know, it will be in almost every state. If you go to Andhra Pradesh, we go to Vijayanagaram, Srikakulam, and go beyond that. If you go to different districts, Godavari districts, and our own Krishna district, the speech sound would be variant from the other. That's what you call it dialect. In fact, dialect is wonderful slang. Also, we can say slang is should I say an essay to the language. Essay to the language. Unless there is such slang and all that, how can you identify the people? Can all the people have their speech refined? In case all the people living in different living conditions, taking different kinds of food, different wearing different kinds of attire and all that, dress and all that, can they speak in a similar way? Even in Andhra Pradesh, where even one region where one language is spoken, for example, Telugu here, and in Tamil Nadu, how many dialects are there? Dialects should be there. They are the rich properties. They are the rich properties of that language. The dialects and slangs are the rich properties. They enhance the value of the people, value of the language. And they also tell us from the dialect, from the slang perhaps they speak, especially the dialect they speak, we can identify them where they are from easily. It's called actually identity. Identity with the language happens in such a case. While I told you earlier, I don't know whether I told you or not. I have a YouTube channel in which I read short stories. I happen to read 2 short stories written by Sri PVP Sriramurthy garu. He is from Srikakulam, and he did his education and job and all that, especially from that area, Parvatipuram, Srikakulam. Now he's settled in Vijayanagaram. While I was reading his short stories in my YouTube, I learned many things. I took the trouble of learning the words. In case of doubt, actually, we don't know how to pronounce the words of different dialects which are unknown to us. So I relied on him. I recorded my voice over those words by pronouncing those words and sent them to him by voice mail. He listened to them and then gave proper advice how to pronounce it. And sometimes he himself spoke them, sounded them, and recorded the voice message and the voice recorder and sent them to me. That's how one. So we, as the teachers and as the language lovers, should bear one thing in mind. We should not think less of any dialect. Each dialect has its own beauty, own grace, and own dignity also. That we should keep in mind always. Why I speak all these things in this now? Is it out of context? No. I am in my sense what I'm speaking about. It is this dialect problem that makes this star girl in this drama less respected. People around her, disrespect her, and don't regard her as a human being also. No. Suppose you people is a gathering. Let us imagine a party, marriage gathering, where say let us say 150 people have attended. Out of them, 140 are from one district, one dialect, one who speak one dialect, and the 10 rest speak in one dialect. How the rest of the 140, the majority of the people, make fun of these people? It's a common experience for all of us. That's why in some of the movies where the directors use some dialects of particular places, they make their characters mouthpieces of the dialogues. That's why those people, those dialect speaking people protested them. So they've taken care of nowadays. So because of this girl's dialect, she's almost insulted in that particular gathering. And she, for her, perhaps I don't know whether for her fortune or unfortunate. It was unfortunate or fortunate for that girl to fall in the eyes of Professor Higgins, who was making a note of the people's speech around them, that particular time, and all that. And she understood he's not an ordinary man. After some conversations have gone, abuses have gone. The next day, after some time, she goes into his laboratory, his house, and he wants him to teach good dialect. He wants to teach him to refine her dialect. And Professor Higgins puts many conditions to all which this girl agrees. And in the name of rigorous training, undoubtedly, Professor Higgins is very professional, a genius, and highly talented. He's a wonderful teacher also. He starts teaching her. In the teaching process, what happens? He becomes almost a mechanical and a professional, forgetting the very fact that Elijah Doolittle is a woman with flesh and blood. In the case of Pygmalion, the sculptor, it was ivory, immaterial. It is a material. Till the entire carving was done, till the god Aphrodite appeared and granted him his vision. That carved woman would not transform into a beautiful woman. But here, there's a wonderful point he has put into the character of Professor Higgins. Professor Higgins becomes almost professional. I'm sorry, beyond professional, he becomes quite mechanical. He forgets the very fact that he's dealing with, unlike Pygmalion, the great Greek sculptors. He was dealing with the woman who is before him in flesh and blood. And his professionalism, his determination, his passion to change this girl, Cockney girl, into a wonderful girl by transforming her attitude towards dress and way of talking and everything. determination is just to let her pass the royal court, where the educated come. He was successful. He was successful. And while transforming that beautiful girl, that girl into cockney girl, flower girl into beautiful one, he forgets the very fact that he doesn't take the, should I say, the feelings of this particular woman. She's a human being. She has her likes and dislikes and moods and all that. And he never, he simply ignored them. Sherwin, sir, one more 15 minutes?
Yeah, please, sir.
Sure. He forgets the very fact that he's dealing with a human being. And how could you take her likes and dislikes and moods? He never, just he wants to see her as a robot, more than that even. Toy, something. She has become, Doolittle has become a toy in his experimenting. His experimental object would consider experimental object was this Elijah Doolittle. That's one aspect you should keep in mind. And there would be a clash between these two characters in the last scene, Act 5, perhaps Act 5 also. And in which he says, there she wants to be away from Professor Higgins. He tells him in his face that it is, for him, she's a toy. But it is from Colonel Pickering. I'm right, Colonel Pickering, she has learned how to be human, how to respect others. He's very considerate and very thoughtful. He's kind, he's humane, and many things. It was really from him she has learned decency, decorum, and manners of speech also. Perhaps from Higgins she must have learned the scientific way of language. They are speaking, perhaps speaking of the language, its phonetic systems and all that. But it was from him that his Professor Higgins' training bettered her pronunciation, turned her Cockney speech into a beautiful speech that could pass into any royal party. But it was from Colonel Pickering she learned how to be a human being, a wonderful quality of him. After all, what education means, and education is one of the wonderful and deeply touched topic of this Pygmalion is education. What is the ultimate aim of education? Let us not speak about from the monetary and we are speaking of the higher plane. Of course, education should get you settled into a good job, and it should give a stability and balance in your life. It should provide you a steady income, some employment. Apart from all these, there is some. Albert Einstein once said, education is just what the essence that is left in you after you left the portals of the schools, institutions, and colleges. Is it not? So she says, so for scientific knowledge, scientific way of speech, and all that phonetics, I have learned from you. And she goes to the extent of throwing one of her chappals at Professor Higgins. How does she behave so? How can she justify her act? She says, I've done so just because of the education you have given to me. Education has made me independent. Education has made me how to think. Your education, your training, all the 6 months made me to walk on my own. with the knowledge I've been able to say all this, I want away from you and go to my again the that's the dialect, the region, and want to speak her own dialect much before she came to Professor Higgins. I want to go there. But one more aspect of this Pygmalion drama is when education, when a language, let us say, when the language doesn't give you a cultural understanding of the particular language, it just makes you a robot, a mechanical, which Lydia Doolittle doesn't want to be in. She wants to go beyond it. Education should make us independent of anything and anyone else, independent of the thoughts that have been honest by great people. Education makes you inquisitive. Education awards you a questioning mind also, by which you question everything, you observe everything, and then only you take into account what is to be taken, what is not to be taken. Okay. And what she says in us, that duel is, your training has made me dependent on you. If you think if you think your training is what you have given me as education, I don't think it's an education. See how wonderfully she's speaking. A flower girl, which is she's not able to use words properly, is able to dictating, giving chance to Professor Higgins, who is highly educated. It is the wonderful gift, perhaps, that education uses to all of us. Education is what is manifest in us, as Swami Vivekananda said. The teacher has to bring out the metal from them. As Professor Chandrasekhar sir has talked earlier, the teacher has to identify where the student's ability or natural, perhaps, attitude is, where is the attitude lying, and he should carefully bring it out. But just show the way. We can just show the way, as himself has put it. The teacher is a guide, friend, philosopher, felicitator. Just he shows the way. Just is like a policeman, he shows the way. That's the signals. Such a role has it. While if you're reading, entirely, I want all of you to revisit and to reread again last season especially. There you can find the wonderful views of Bernard Shaw on education. What education means to him, you can visualize what a wonderful idea. Nowadays we can see most of the youngsters, I don't say not most, it is the majority of the youngsters, those are highly educated, depend on their parents. But I don't say, as far as monetary aspect is concerned, in taking decisions and going forward into the life sometimes. So it has not widened their mental horizons. Education doesn't widen our mental horizons. What's the fun of being educated? And what questions? It's a highly debatable topic. And what conditions and what that prevailed at that time, and what points perhaps Elijah Doolittle, who transformed into from a flower girl to a wonderful language expert, speaker perhaps. The question she shot was still relevant. Okay. Now, one more topic, one more aspects of this, themes of this language and speech. If a person is to be identified in our society, if a person is to be identified by his speech or by dialect, that's there. That shows his dialect and where he is from. and people are identified by their physical appearance. That's the dress also. That's what happens in the case of Flower Girl. A speech, they found it to be defective. How can you say that one speech spoke, one dialect is good, one dialect is bad? How one can be superior and inferior to the other? I don't understand. We shouldn't have such feelings, and we should invite him. So language and speech is one of the themes of Pygmalion, and identity crisis is there. We are all under the impression that if you speak in English very well, even at the hotels, restaurants, even in the small towns and small villages also, you'll be respected. I don't know whether it is true or not, but my personal feelings tell me that it is true or not. When I go to office and ask in our areas, when I go to office on some errand, I would ask them for information in Telugu. The way they speak is very insulting. But if I open the conversation in English, excuse me, can I have some information, please? So that that's all. He simply becomes very alert with his own language, and he tries to give me an answer. That should be defaced. So, should I say erased? That should be erased. Okay. Social class also. Yes. You can find here two classes: the middle class, upper middle class, lower class, and then the above class. Different layers, social layers also can find here. While Elijah Doolittle and Alfred Doolittle are father, both belong to the lowest rung of the social order. While Professor Higgins and all that, they belong to luxury class. Have nots. Royal family still richer of this. Sometimes when your social class changes by either by an accident or by your hard work and by your struggle for it. So you get different, you get a lot of income, and you will be thrown into rich class and all that. And what happens there? There, your walk will be stilted. Your speech would be artificial. And certain manners which you do not perhaps like in your hearts and hearts, you have to cultivate and behave so on. How far we can imbibe those qualities? Can we imbibe all of us, those qualities? No. So what I meant to say is that to whatever class you're in, whatever class you belong to, you should be a human being. Remember, we're all human beings. That humanity and the idea that we are all human beings should be in our mind. If you have such a feeling in mind, perhaps you could speak to anyone whose dialect is from any point, anything. You would any differently than yourself. You would love him. That's what is missing here. Social class struggle, social class difference also. He wants to project it here. And one more I would like to. Elijah Doolittle's father is a drunkard. Because of his drunken nature, of course, he couldn't have a steady income. And he has become a parasite. He absorbs, he sponges money from others and whoever comes in his way. It is very clever also, intelligent also. Once he sees that his daughter, Elijah Doolittle, walks into Professor Higgins' kingdom, being his experimental, being his the part of being his, should I say that, being experiment. He wants to, he can I say plan? What is it? He wants to get money from him. He wants to get money from Higgins because he allows his daughter to be his experiment, a tool for or a vehicle for his experiment. He demands some money from him. And here, as I told you earlier, Shaw's father was a drunkard, but father liked his. Shaw learned the sense of humor from his father. The same sense of humor, and perhaps sense of humor, Bernard Shaw fused into the character of Elijah Dolittle. And being a parasite, he asks money from others, and the king now he spends them. And suddenly, because of a reform society, is catapulted into, thrown into middle class. Middle class, his social order, social class is changing now. In fact, instead of being glad, happy for that, he becomes very sad because this middle class has certain norms, practices, certain patterns of behavior, and all that, from which he cannot be out of it. He regrets that he has lost the independence of, perhaps independence or freedom or liberty, whatever you like to term it as, to go in the society as he likes them, to taste food and everything as he likes on the roads, on the tea shops, near the tea shops or hotels, beside the roads. And he thinks that his freedom is lost. So when you change your, whether you intentionally change or by accident, your social class changes, and that should be confined to social class only. But that will not be to your mind, to your heart, and all that. When such a thing happens, you're lost. You're not a human being at all. We all, whether educated or uneducated, as a genius or ordinary people, we are all human beings. If even a great scientist in the laboratory, he is, as he is, he's a father, mother, he's a father and a husband and son to his family. That he should not forget. Once he's out of his profession, he's just an ordinary human being. This we have to keep in mind. It's wonderful. This is one of the wonderful themes Shaw has projected through this Pygmalion. And education should make us wise. And of course, education should make us learned. That's one thing. Besides learning, you should have wisdom also. Education should bestow on you intelligence. This intelligence, which you have got by being educated, should reflect in your way of thinking, in your way of life, in your perceptions, and all that. Unless and until such a thing happens, what is the meaning of education? What is the meaning of being educated? Education should make you. We are all civilized at our heart. That's what I told you. Vivekananda says, it is manifest in our hearts and hearts. Education is a vehicle that's it makes you, it brings out. So you're already cultivated, civilized. Your civilized and cultivated heart should be more cultivated by this education. Here, as we have been in the teaching profession, and intellects and genius should think over. They have already spent centuries of their time and all that on this. education in terms of monetary aspects, like employment skill. That's okay. That cannot be denied. Let us be practical. But apart from it, it should make you cultivated, highly cultivated. Right. This is one of the themes Bernard Shaw has taken. See, like that, it's very difficult to talk about Bernard Shaw's plays. We can speak out perhaps about Shakespeare because there is poetry, there would be language and all that. Bernard Shaw's, as I told you earlier, Bernard Shaw uses literature to project his, to mirror his views on politics, religion, on many, many things. Unless and until we have the taste, perhaps we cannot relish Shaw's plays as we have enjoyed, even now enjoy Shakespeare's plays. We cannot enjoy Shaw's plays as easily, as comfortably as we have enjoyed Shakespeare's play. Well, that's all I can say. Perhaps in a short span of time about Shaw's Pygmalion. I hope I have delivered the goods. Over to Saravanan.
Thank you very much, sir, for such a very, very fascinating presentation on this G.B. Shaw's Pygmalion. The wonderful entire gamut of G.B. Shaw's life and his writings, and again aspects of his contribution to this world of literature, including you were making a comparison of Shakespeare with G.B. Shaw's and his social skills, as well as his how he involved with the Fabian society, and again what are all the influences G.B. Shaw had, and again his keen eye for language, and again his Irish identity, though he lived in London and London shaped him, but he never lost his identity, and again how he evolved as a human being. Wonderfully narrated and presented. And the floor is open for discussion. Anybody would like to say anything, you are most welcome. And again, one piece of audio sir has given to me that for a minute thing, and let me try playing it. And in the meantime, the discussion floor is open for discussion. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bodapatti sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
All of us have at some time of our student life been in touch with G.B. Shaw.
Yes.
And the way he writes, the subject matter, the language, everything is so dear to the readers and so comprehensible that it's like very easy to relate to what he wants to say. And many of his works have been televised, or films have been made on them. Like on Pygmalion also we have the Hindi movie Manpasand, which features Devanand, Girish Karnad, etc. So we had seen that movie when we were children, and yes, we understand certain things when we see in the visual form. So knowledge, the intellect, the social issue that a writer takes up is not an easy thing. Now, if we go back to the background, the childhood experiences of G.B. Shaw, how a drunken father and a deprived childhood, and the mother taking the responsibility of the family, and then her penchant for music, all these things, how these inputs get embedded into the writer's writing content and style. All these things are very important. So discussions like this help us to review what we had learned earlier and add on so many things to what we have left out and what we need to know now. So it's like those who listen to the whole session intently do get a lot of information, because in one go we can never take in all that, and those earlier days were those in which we did not have so many dimensions of intake. It was either the print media or the classroom teaching, the teacher as the audio medium. But now we have so many added dimensions to imparting of these things. So when we go through all these things again in a new perspective and with all these added advantages of learning, we find that the writers have written wonderfully. And you have actually explored a lot, you have included a lot. In fact, I was also thinking I had missed out a lot when I read all these things as a student. So now I could get a view into all those things. Thank you for enlightening me. I talk about.
No, maybe the pleasure is mine. Pleasure is mine.
So, wonderful, sir. Congratulations, and I don't have to say anything about your sessions because you've always nailed it.
Thank you.
So this one too, sir. Congratulations, sir.
And one more thing I would like to add, ma'am.
Yes.
That I'm sorry, Shaw remained a teetotaler,
Okay.
Yeah, throat is like.
Okay.
And he became a vegetarian also.
Okay.
And his conviction is very wonderful, the conviction is unshakable faith, if you say, describe it so. Whatever concepts, ideas, and then strong convictions he has had about religion all the time, he carried till the end of his life. Even at the age of, he died at the age of 94. Just before it, history went on writing, 60 plays, and he was a wonderful prose writer.
Yes, sir.
And he insisted that people should speak English. People should speak the language very beautifully. Very beautifully.
Yes.
That's what he said.
Okay, sir. Shravan sir is sharing the audio.
Thank you.
Is it audible, sir?
No, it's not. He tried either of the. You have two videos with you, no, Sarvan? And Professor friends, all of you must have heard Shakespeare's, Shaw's voice, and to thrill us, to get thrilled perhaps, to get how pronunciation should be, we can hear his voice if it's possible, if it can be played, heard. So trying, sir?
I'm trying, sir, but let me check. Is it happening, sir?
No, it's, nothing comes out.
Tarunan sir, can you send it to the mail, sir? I will play it.
I have sent it to your WhatsApp. Could you please try?
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp
means it will take time to reach
actually
the mail.
only one small audio only, ma'am. 1 minute audio. Long back I sent it. You please check, ma'am.
1 second.
I'm also.
To have a taste of how beautifully Bernard Shaw speaks, at least the English language.
Good noon, sir.
Good afternoon.
And good noon to our founder, the founder, sir, of Velta, Dr. Malti Madam, Valli Madam, Ejil sir, Karunanidhi sir, and including everyone. Actually, sir, I did read the topic which has been selected by you for your today's international webinar. Actually, sir, very interesting topic. When I was pursuing my bachelor degree in English literature, the same had been prescribed in the syllabus, sir. So the same also reminds me about my about the past days when I was pursuing my bachelor degree. So, sir, quite interesting indeed, and your presentation is really wonderful, sir.
Thank you.
The
Thank you
selection of the
to took a
topic is
nice
very
subject.
interesting, sir.
Right, thank you.
Yes, really, indeed.
And again, the way you, I second Malti Sharmaji's opinion and Alokji's opinion, because you took us to the days of our both UG as well as PG. Without English literature will not be
Complete. Will not be complete.
complete. And again, and it is as you beautifully said, socialism and this kind of no. Um, teetotalarian. He was a teetotalarian, and again,
Yes,
and
yes.
teetotalarian, again, teetotalism, exactly. And again, this vegetarian, he remained as a vegetarian throughout his life. The influence, because he learned a lot of things, and from his the hard work, especially the hard work he learned from his mom. And
He
again,
struggled. He struggled very hard to carve a niche for himself, sir. In all.
these are all the things. No, you took us back to exactly this our UG and PG days, really, sir. And
Thank
as
you.
if I was sitting in my class and again listening to my professors, the same reminiscences I could uh, ideate. That is what really you made the session so very.
And when we are speaking about Bernard Shaw, apart from this Pygmalion, he's famous for his reportees, quick reportees.
Correct.
Many anecdotes are there in his life.
Yeah.
About Sophia Loren meeting him in a party and asking to get married.
True.
Many things are around. Once some people went to him, some organizers went to him, asking donations charity for construct a compound wall to a graveyard. Very cheerfully, very smilingly, very teasingly, with a teasing smile, asked them, "Well, why do you want to construct a compound wall around this?" He said them, "Sir, we want to construct so that the people." No, need not, because the people in the graves do not come and cannot come. They do not want to come. The people who are outside don't want to go inside. He said.
But you see, the present government and again Indian governments are no. Our system is like that people are doing all these things. It's very.
And perhaps regarding Pygmalion, we have a wonderful that
And again,
regarding Winston Churchill, he sent 2 tickets for the first show of Pygmalion to Winston. It is said so, but we are not sure. It's not authentic actually. 2 tickets are sent to Winston Churchill asking to attend the first show. And he said added one more thing to touch the interest.
How do you do?
It's coming
Here
now.
am I, enjoying myself down at Malvern. And there are you, enjoying yourself by allowing a photograph to talk to you. That, you see, is one of the marvels of the movie tour. It brings us together in a way that used to be entirely impossible. Now, I wish that the movie tone could bring you not only this picture of me, but I wish it could bring you the fresh air that I'm breathing at present. Now, I have always wanted to have a heart-to-heart talk with the people of England.
Only one audio only, no, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And I
Yes.
have another YouTube link also.
From that only sir has taken, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your timely support.
Sir, Saran sir,
Yes, sir.
that's a different audio, no. Because we cannot play now. It runs to 17 minutes, no. It's
Then,
Bernard Shaw's views on spoken English and broken English,
yes, sir. That is the YouTube link. Let me play that.
At least for 2 minutes, can you? 2 minutes, ma'am, can you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Once again, sir.
If possible, if possible.
Let me find the cursor and then do it, sir.
Please, if possible, it can be played for 2 minutes only. That's all.
Let me introduce
Is it audible, sir?
Bernard
Yes, ma'am. Audible.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
I
ma'am.
am
Yes, ma'am.
asked to give you a specimen of spoken English. But first, let me give you a warning. You think you are hearing my voice, but unless you know how to use your gramophone properly, what you are hearing may be something grotesquely unlike any sound that has ever come from my lips. A few days ago, I heard a gramophone record of a speech by Mr. Ramsay MacDonald, the parliamentary chief of the British Labour Party, who has a fine, deep Scottish voice and a remarkably musical and dignified delivery. What I heard was a high-pitched, sharp, cackling voice, most unmusical, suggesting a small, egotistical, very ill-mannered man complaining of something. I said, that is not Mr. MacDonald. I know his voice as well as I know my own. The gramophone operator assured me that it was, and showed me the label on the record to prove it. I said, no, that is not Ramsay MacDonald. But let me see whether I cannot find him for you. Then, as the record started again, I took the screw, which regulates...
Saravanan, shall we stop here? We are encroaching next speaker's time.
Oh, yes, no problem, sir. We will, maybe, we will reserve this video for probably in the evening. We
Yes,
might
sir.
start.
That would be better. That would be better.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, let's not encroach somebody's next speaker's time.
Lunchtime. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I must congratulate you on this wonderful treatise on GB Cross Pygmalion and this amazing lesson video. And you really took us to the UG and PG days as endorsed by Malti Sharmaji. Thank you so much for gracing this occasion, and thank you, big thanks to you for your valuable time and wonderful presentation. And we have, the next presenter for the day, that is Dr. Srilata Madam of, yes. Srilata ma'am.
Yes, sir, I'm here, sir.
Thank you for joining us, ma'am. Sorry, we have encroached your time, and we will formally start the session right after my introduction, ma'am. Yes.
Sure.
I will present you to this forum, then you can start your session, ma'am. Yes. And good afternoon, everybody. It gives me immense pleasure in presenting our Ullapalli Srilata Madam, Dr. Srilata Madam, to this Velta forum. And Madam is, she is multilingual, I should say. She could speak English, Hindi, Telugu, and Tamil. And Madam has done PGCT from UFLU, and she is her specialization is American literature. And she has taught subjects like communication skills, British literature, poetry, drama, prose, fiction, Victorian age, Indian writing in English, new literatures, and Indian translation English. And Madam got her PhD from by presenting that is from Sri Padmavati Mahila Vishwavidyalayam, Tirupati, and Madam did her PhD on an ecological study of Ernest Hemingway's stories, short stories especially, and such a great scholar. And again, Madam is known for she has got 2 decades of experience to her credit, and she is an associate professor of English, and she worked in Australia for 1 year, and that is yet another no. And she was there in Melbourne for 1 year. It's really amazing to have such a very inspiring personality with us. And again, she was also head of the department for 11 years, and she was the vice president and head for College Magazine, member license committee for NAC, and again. A member of research promotion, and again IQAC, member of IQAC committee, member of anti-ragging committee and best teacher committee, and again library committee, quality circle, and acted as judge in various competitions. And she is a member of board of studies for Krishna University and Mary Stella Marriage Vijayawada, and again also board of studies member for Saint Teresa College Eluru, and again she is also board of studies member for AG and SD Uyuru, and again she was a chair. She has chaired sessions in various seminars and conferences, guided projects for students, and paper setter. She is a question paper setter and examiner, and observer and referee, and served as an examiner for various forums, and again various exams. And Madam delivered various talks, and again she has got 13 publication articles to a journal articles. She's edited a book and a conference proceeding, and 24 edited books chapters. Book chapters Madam has got, and again very interesting profile. And she has written textbooks for Acharya Nagarjuna University for MA English, and again Madam is known for her wonderful, really high academic research profile. She is a research supervisor, and again she has guided MPhil scholars, and again she has guided people for this publishing papers, and again one postdoctoral research fellowship, and so such a very inspiring, and again a very rich experience, and so many papers and publications, and national journals, some ranging from 24 journals to her credit, papers presented in conferences and seminars. It is a big list, some 58, 67, it goes on and on. 73 papers Madam has published and presented, various conferences and seminars, and that shows her great scholarship, and again such a very eminent scholar. I feel really humbled and honored to present Dr. Srilata Madam to this Velta Forum. And the floor is yours, ma'am. Thank you so much for gracing this occasion, and thank you so much for your valuable time as well. And the floor is yours. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Saravanan, Dr. Saravanan. It's my pleasure to be a part of this Velta Forum today. Before I start my talk, I would also just say a word of appreciation on Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion. I was also reminded of our students. In fact, when we conducted literary festival, our neighboring colleges, they had a team of students who have enacted on Pygmalion. They had their own costumes of the flower bags, clothes, everything. It was really marvelous. You give a task to students, they do very well. So it's good on the part of Chandrasekhar sir to make us all think about Pygmalion. That's a very good part. Okay, thank you. Now, today my talk is on Sarojini Naidu, the Nightingale of India. Why this topic I've chosen is today is the birth anniversary of Sarojini Naidu. We as Indians should be very proud because she is called as the Nightingale of India. On 1789, she was born on 13th February, and she, of course, she stands as an inspiration to all the women across the nation because she became the president of Indian National Congress in the year 1925, and she is also India's first women governor of United Province in the year 1947. So, amid the men ruling society, patriarchal society, she was one of the freedom fighters who actively participated in the Indian national movement for the independence during the British rule. So, she's a politician and also a great poet, and so she's saluted as Bharat Kokila. And today it's the 143rd birth anniversary of Sarojini Naidu. And coming to her poems, I should say that she's the least criticized poet when we compare with other poets. Maybe the one reason is that there is an air of traditional element in her poetry. If you look into her poems, there is the forms, the rhythms, everything is in a very conventional pattern, and maybe that is one reason why critics uh, um, do not criticize much. So she's a poet, a very simple and a pure poet. She was born in Hyderabad, and she describes her ancestors as lovers of the forest and mountain caves, or great, they're all as dreamers. And we know that she comes from an upper class society, and she enjoyed the advantage of being in an English atmosphere, and her education was more in English than an Indian. And she was the first girl. We all know that she was matriculated from Madras University at the very young age of 12 years. And right from her childhood, she inculcated the habit of reading books. And so we can say that she's a voracious reader, and a greater part of her reading took place from 14 years to 16 years. So, as a young child itself, she was very familiar with the flora and fauna of England, and she wrote a poem called One Day when she was 11 years, and from there begins her poetic career. Okay, and she also received a scholarship from the Nizam of Hyderabad, and she was sent to England. She stayed in England, King's College. She studied there, and later also she studied at Girton College, Cambridge. So almost 3 years she was in England. Like when she was 16 years, she went there. And her association with the English countryside made her choose the flowers, the birds, the rural life of England as the subject of her poems. I hope you remember, she wrote poems on skylarks, daffodils, whatnot, all the beauty of, uh, yeah. So she was talking about or praising the beauty of England. At that time, Sir Edmund Ghosh uh, gave her an advice. Okay, he said that you have mastered the language, right? And why should you sing the glory of Western country? You go back to India. Okay, you can think about India and be sincere in penetrating the Indian passions. It would be better to describe the flowers, the trees, fruits of India. the gardens or temples, and you can be a genuine Indian poet. Why to be in England and talk about English life, right? So she came back to India in the year when she was just 19 years old. So she was there for 3 years and she returned. And we have to understand that she was satisfied with what she learned, and her poems are all lyrical poems, and she shows no turning points in the sense whatever is associated with the poetic innovation of the 20th century. She has created her own idiom. Okay, none of her poems deal with the science or the new discoveries or the changes that we have in the technology, all these things. Okay, so she created, when she came back to India, she created her own world in the sense that a kind of a new language for poetry, in the sense musical, lyrical. Okay, then we need to remember Rabindranath Tagore. You know, he is the first lyric writer, and of course, he is the first non-European to get the Nobel Prize award for literature in the year 1930. And I would say that Sarojini Naidu is the last lyrical poets. I mean, the variety and the abundance that she has created. So I would put it like this: that Rabindranath Tagore and Sarojini Naidu are the first and the last lyric poets. And the abundance of natural imagery you find in her poetry is great. For example, the vividness of diction, the charm, every element is abundant. Sarojini Naidu's poems are all about India, right? She was not convinced that she wrote for Indians alone, like Rabindranath Tagore, for example. For Sarojini Naidu, it is a kind of a universal kind of approach. For example, of course, her poems are all intellectual in the sense it's not so easy to understand scholars and professors, or it's written for a highly intellectual people. But we need to understand that she takes all religions all into one level. Of course, she sings the greatness and beauty of all religions, the beliefs, the culture, everything. But ultimately, she tries to see it as one God. So, right from her childhood, she dreamed magnificently. Of course, she even wanted to be like Keats of India. I mean, lyrical, the poems that she wrote. So her personality, whatever she has created, and the magic in her words are all put in this form as she's the Nightingale of India. And any person, for example, any foreigner, if they visit India, okay, and they listen to the great poetry of Sarojini Naidu, they will definitely have a passion, or they definitely will become glorified by the excellent composition of the poems. Apart from that, it's not a kind of a revolt, but she was fearless in certain themes that she chose, in terms of she condemned evil customs in the society. For example, infant marriages, or certain social customs. She fearlessly condemned. Then she also was against the extravagant expenditure of certain religious occasions. So we need to remember that she lived in a period when there was so much of changes in the Indian history. I mean, I'm talking about even the political part. Okay, so kind of a passion for radical change we could find in her walk of life. So she is a traditionalist. Yes, she's a traditionalist, and all the themes that she has focused is, of course, on life and of love, nature. Okay, though these themes are universal, but still her treatment is completely of her own. For example, I'm reminded of Toru Dutt. Okay, so Toru Dutt, when she also wrote of Indian legends, epic, like she also wrote on Savitri, Sita. Okay, she was the first to interpret the heart of India and create a genuine Indian atmosphere in her poems. But Sarojini not only continued that spirit of tradition, but also enlarged. Enlarged in the sense she has given the maximum amount of glorification for India. So I would emphasize this point again by saying that instead of Hinduizing her poetry, she Indianized it. Okay. She shows intimacy with the Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Zoroastrianism, and the lyrical poems. It's like a songs. For example, she sings a song of Radha, the milkmaid, where it deals with Radha's love for Krishna, and she interpreted according to Vaishnava philosophy, that love of human soul for God. Similarly, in the poem Lakshmi, Sarojini lifts her hands of prayer not for herself but for her nation. Kali, the mother, is a choral chart, various classes of people participate. So, in this way, she tries to bring patriotism, nationalism, togetherness in her poetry. To the Buddha seated on a lotus, Sarojini brings out the spirit of Buddhist teachings. The prayer of Islam, in that poem, she throws light on the conception of God in Islam. Similarly, the call of evening prayer, where she paints all the dignities of the followers of the four principal religions of India, worshipping one and the same God under four different names. So, what I would like to say is that she's giving a kind of image that God is one, but the forms of worship are varied. So, the subjects are many. For example, what to say? There is a kind of moments of ecstasy in her poems, very thought-provoking poems. She speaks about the purpose of life and also about the mystery of death. She's attracted to the great religions of the world: Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, and Islam. Mythology interests her, and she sings the gods and goddesses of her own ancient land. So, in her poetry, she brings all the myths, Radha Krishna myth. She sings all. She would not miss any of the festivals or any of the myths in her poetry. She also wrote on the persons. Her poems were on Mahatma Gandhi, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Nizam of Hyderabad. Yes, she sees the beauty of uh, these people. She looks into the greatness of these persons and puts it in the form of poetry. Not only that, even ordinary people. She has written poems on palanquin bearers, bangle sellers, coromandel weavers, whatnot, dancers, so gypsies, snake charmers, fishermen, beggars, so whatnot. She also wrote on all common people. Similarly, as I told you, she deals on social customs of India, like sati, parda. She gives us a kind of a vision. She creates a kind of a penetrating criticism of life, okay, in a very artistic manner. She's not at all argumentative. She's not at all very rebellious, but she puts it in a very, what to say, in a very constructive manner. And similarly, she chooses fascinating subjects from history. For example, kings and queens also she has focused in her poetry, like the kings and queens who lie asleep beneath the tombs of Golconda. Okay, and she was moved by the history of Delhi. So the legends, of course, she has also mentioned the legends. And I would fail in my duty if I forget to mention Indian festivals. Yes, she spoke about all the Indian festivals. She sang on Indian flowers. And then she also sings about the seasons. For example, autumn and its sadness. Spring season is full of joy, beauty, youth, glory. She sings about spring and joy. So she's a traditionalist, she's a liberalist. Okay, we need to understand that her mind, okay, her poems reveal her noble mindedness. She was very liberal in her voice and in religion. So Sarojini Naidu tries to sympathize with the poor and oppressed. Okay, she does not want to treat the widows in a conventional manners. She understands the anguish of the widows. She's delighted to see people of different religions worshipping in perfect peace. And she's happy to see the love of Hindus and the Parsis or the Muslims and the Christians because they're all together in this joint motherland. So she loves what to say, even the past, what to say. She recreates the beauty and the glory of the imperial palaces of the Mughal India, which was very beautiful. So I told you she's a conventional writer. She is traditional at the same time. She's liberal at the same time. Realism. We find her poems are very real. It is not at all artificial. There is a great charm in her poems because of the imageries that she has chosen, and it is very, very realistic. Then need to mention that when we read the poems, we will be amazed to see the knowledge that she has on each and every aspect. For example, the variety of knowledge that she has on Indian birds, animals, flowers, fruits, and when she wrote about the kings and the queens. When she wrote about the kings and the queens, she would not miss to illustrate on the precious stones or the dress or the decoration or the musical instruments, whatnot. So she has given a realistic picture. She has tried to portray the Indian life, the Indian aura, the Indian beauty in the form of lyrics. And she would also describe the feelings, the colors. Of course, she gave importance to humanity. That is also a part. The religion is also another important part. So realism in her poetry adds freshness. It gives us a kind of a living interest through her poems. Talking about the birds, it is larger part appear in her poems. Birds with, be it the peacock or the parrot, quail, bulbul, water birds, birds like falcon, even pigeon, dove. So she has sung on almost each and every bird, even animals as an elephant, deer, sheep, reptiles like the serpent. So she has also written on animals, flowers coming to champa, gulmohar, jasmine, lily, lotus, poppy, oleander, tulip. She has tried to give an elaborate description of all the beauty of India. Even fruits, she was very fond to mention the fruits like mango, coconut, pomegranates. Of course, even precious stones, she also wrote on precious stones. She wrote on all jewels, jades, opal, ruby, gem, amber. She was also fond of writing on musical instruments. And as she's a lyrical poet, among all Indo-Anglian poets, Sarojini is what to say, she's a very artistic and she has learned this art and she uses artistic devices very deliberately and very consciously. much concentration on form and style as on thought and meaning goes on. For example, I'll give you an example. She will write like this, lily like fingers. She uses this, or she would say, flower like bodies, okay, or rose scented nights. So that's how she is artistic, and also there is music in the poems. So this happens because she pays a good deal of attention to vowel music. Okay, Telugu is a musical language. Telugu is called a musical language because it ends in a vowel sound. So because of the attention that she gives to a vowel music, vowels, you have a lot of music in her poems. I mean, she chooses musical words. So, to appreciate the rhythm or the harmony of Sarojini Naidu's poems, you need to read it aloud. When you read it aloud, you will be able to observe the beauty or the music in her poems. And so, her themes are all traditional themes of life, love, nature, man. And I need to also mention that she was not good in writing epics. She was not good in writing long narrative poems. She had talent only to write on lyrics or songs, not even sonnets. She did not even write sonnets. So, very simple. Her genius lays in writing lyric poems. So, she's a lyrics, and her work marked by a delicacy of fantasy and music. So, she exhibited high workmanship in the composition of poems. She shows great influence. I mean, when we read the poems, we understand that she's influenced by Keats, Shelley, all the romantic poets. Influence we can find in her poems. So, the themes of love, themes of nature, Indianness, great feeling of life with all its variety, beauty, color. Major themes of her poems are all full of joy, hope, fear, and it is all inculcated by bringing the common people of the town, bringing their life into the limelight. And she also, of course, speaks of the springtime. Okay, so she does have a favorite themes, and she also wrote on bhakti poems. For example, the temple is a kind of a poem. It is a collection of a poem. It is written in three parts, a total of 24 poems. So this is a completely a section of love poetry. So apart from temple poems, she has written many poems which we have beautifully describes the common folk, all glorifying India and other glory, Indianness, patriotism, nationalism, everything. So this poem, temple poem, is also a pilgrimage of love. So the temple here is a separate and a complete section of Sarojini love poems. And this is a concluding part of the Broken Wing, subtitled A Pilgrimage of Love. Here it is divided into three sections. One is Gate of Delight, the other one is Path of Tears, and final is the Sanctuary. So, Gate of Delight is again comprises of 8 poems. So, when a person is entering into the temple, he enters with lot of delight. Okay, so he is having a kind of an offering. He offers himself. Okay, self-surrender. All these things takes place. And then the next section is Path of Tears. You have to purify yourself before you see God. So, Path of Tears again, it has again 8 poems. And then finally, you enter the sanctum. So, when you enter the sanctum, you know it is all freshness and enthusiasm. And when you enter the sanctum, there is a unification. The self unites with the ultimate. So, this poem, once again, is a very important. I mean, this collection, this entire collection is very important when we study about Sarojini Naidu, because she uses bridal mysticism here. The entire theme of the lyrics is love, of course. I mean, it is like a Prakriti and Purusha. I mean, the merging of the individual self with the cosmic being. That's what is mentioned. However, the temple here, it does not mean temple in literal sense. It may mean a church also. It may mean anything else. So the self here is extended. It is purified, and finally, in the sanctum, it is united with the inner space. So the motive of this pilgrimage is this. I mean, the central symbol of the temple is it unifies. Okay, all the three parts is just a kind of initiation, and finally, it is into the unifying into the sanctum. In this process, she speaks about ecstasy. So, when you are going to meet God, the individual self gets into excitement, in the sense, not joy, but it is an extreme joy. So, joy is a normal stage, extreme joy is you become overexcited. So, that excitement and that level of happiness and joy. Okay, so this entire journey that she speaks about is how an individual experiences. So here, in another terms, you can put it like this: the entire universe is a temple, and the first temple is the soul. Okay, and the soul is enshrined in the body, and the next temple is enshrining the universal soul in the physical nature. Okay, so the symbolic action of this entire poem is completely uh, nothing selfish. Okay, it is all surrendering one to the God, and the self jumps into that sphere of ananda. So at that time, there is no fear, no rebellion, nothing. Devotion, complete devotion, and one is united with God. So I just want, it is a very large part. I mean, to speak about a temple poem, you need another session. It's a very large part. I just wanted to mention that, so I mentioned. So that's it. As today is Sarojini Naidu's birthday, I just wanted to speak on the greatness of her poetry with special reference to some of the lyrics and temple poems. Thank you, sir.
Awesome, ma'am. Awesome. Really, no. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our Srilata madam for reminding me of Sarojini Naidu's birthday, and again, and the moment she messaged me, immediately I called her, and readily she agreed to do a presentation. And again, that is how we have had madam's presentation. And so very kind of you, ma'am, for such an interesting and again, reliving Sarojini Naidu's writing. That's what I should say. And again, really interesting experience for all of us. And I would like to request the forum members to open for, that is, floor is open for discussion. I would like to request all the people to unmute yourself and discuss with the madam.
Lata madam.
Sir.
I'm Chandrasekhar.
Sir.
Your speech is very lucid, pure, innocent, and fresh as Sarojini Naidu's poems. Very pure.
Thank you, sir.
And as we know, our poems depicts the life sketches of common people and folk people, And there is no ambiguity in his writings, in speech as well as. She's a wonderful speaker, She used to compete with Mahatma Gandhi. Many people would consider her as a better speaker than Mahatma Gandhi.
Yes, sir.
And very emotional, very emotional as Nehru.
That's how a poet should be, sir.
Unless we get into passion, we become passionate, we cannot write poetry. And like wonderful lyricism and symbolism, images, Images, she takes wonderful images, small images, As you know, as you're quite aware, Jane Austen is criticized for the simple themes of reflecting only middle class people, And at the time, she has given a fitting reply, Well, I depict the life that is known to me, that I lived with them. How can I go beyond that? It's a wonderful reply, Thank you very much, ma'am, for having done a beautiful job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chandrasekhar, sir.
Yeah. Here is.
That's what exactly Sarojini Naidu, I should say. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Good noon. Good noon, Dr. Srilata, ma'am.
Ma'am, please.
As Bodapati sir was saying, Sarojini Naidu, in combination with Dr. G. Srilatha, has actually made Velta Forum sing today. So it was a very musical deliberation, given the spontaneity and flow with which you spoke. The content was absolutely what Sarojini Naidu was like. And we, all of us, have read some poem or the other.
Yes.
Like I could relate to the Indian Weavers, song of Radha the Milkmaid,
Yes.
where she is totally lost because Radha is Sarojini Naidu herself. So all those things were very true when we relate them or connect them to her works. So, and the truth that we were able to remember her on her birthday on the Welter Forum. This is also a very big achievement for the forum because we do speak, but then this is a sort of homage that we pay to these great personalities. So thank you, ma'am, for doing this to Welter Forum.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, may I speak a few words, Dr. G. Srilata madam?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
I am Surya Chandrasekhar from Eluru, Sarsiaradi College.
Yeah, please, sir.
Excellent presentation is very sweet. As Professor Bodapati Chandrasekhar, my namesake, said, wonderful presentation. She is, Dr. Sarojini Naidu is very nearer to life because her poetry mirrors life, as we all know, and literature is interpretation of society or criticism of society, we say. And you have done excellent job of bringing her mind and heart close to our understanding because she is nearer to life, reality, rhythm of life. The rhythm of her poetry are perfectly matching, and you have done the same thing excellently well. Thank you so for your presentation, madam.
Thank you, sir. Saravanan, sir.
And I must thank all the elite and learned colleagues for your wonderful inputs on this presentation, and again the fruitful discussion we have had. And it is now it's time for our lunch, and we'll break for lunch, and again we will reassemble by 1:45 for the next session. 2 o'clock the next session is. So I would request all the elite and learned colleagues and dignitaries have your lunch, and we will meet by 1:45 around. Thank you, everyone. And especially, I would like to congratulate Dr. Srilata Madam for her wonderful treatise on Sarojini Naidu. We call her in Tamil, Kavikuyil, which means this really a poet for excellence. That's what we should say. And again, she is the cuckoo, this poet of cuckoo. That's what.
Bharat Kokila.
Yeah. Amazing. Very interesting, ma'am. And again, thank you so much. And we are looking forward to have your continuous patronage and support to this Delta Forum. And thanks a lot. And again, hats off to you, really. Recollecting all these poems and works ranging from birds and again animals and even this nature and again human beings, whatnot, everything. It's amazing, really. The perfect combination of these hats off.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. That's how we need to remember Sarojini Naidu for her variety of her poems. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. I must congratulate you again and again. I remain grateful to you for just reminding me about Sarojini Naidu's birthday. Thank you. We will definitely commemorate these kind of great poets and again stalwart. And not only that, you could also bring in Thorudat and again, let's say, even our Rabindranath Tagore, all these people to understand our Sarojini Naidu much better. Thank you, ma'am. Hats off to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else who would like to give a comment? Karunji sir, yes sir.
Thank you very much, madam, for nice presentation. Thank you and thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful lunch. We will meet again. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your kind appreciation, sir.